Hello, my name is Justyna Robinson, and in this short presentation, I will talk about my approach to big qualitative data. This approach is called Corpus Linguistic approach, and the big data that I usually deal with will be large text data. I represent Concept Analytics Lab, in which we investigate patterns of meaning and language in large data. So if you are interested in looking further into ways of dealing with meanings in large data, please visit our website, which is provided at the bottom of this slide. So let me tell you more about the types of data we work with. First of all, it's language, and language that ends up being analyzed in a written form. So if you have recordings of the data, we'll transcribe those recordings and analyze written text. Ideally, we would want this text to be naturally occurring language, but the approach that I'm talking about is also being taken to analyze novels, fiction, etc. That essentially the type of data that we're dealing with, it's mainly naturally occurring language that gets to be fed into the computer, so to speak, via text. My approach to analyzing big qualitative data is rooted in corpus linguistics. So, as I mentioned before, corpus linguistics uses computers to help you analyze the patterns in data. Corpus linguistics is an area of linguistics that really started in late 80s, early 90s, but it picked up its speed with the development of the speed of computers and the capabilities of the computers. Corpus linguistics allows you to identify keywords and key patterns in the data within a few minutes. And this is something that is an advantage, especially if you don't know the text that you're analyzing. You've been put on a new research project, you haven't carried out those interviews yet, you are in charge of analyzing those interviews. You can put the data through corpus linguistic software, click a few buttons, and it will identify the keywords, key phrases, key sentences that can summarize the main themes that come up in the data. What does big data mean to me? First of all, the data for me is mainly language and also statistical information that comes with more common patterns of language use. And big data is the language data that is too large to read chronologically and too large for me as a researcher to confidently extract significant patterns, themes, messages. So the challenge the big data pose is often it's reading. Chronology doesn't always work well. I mean, chronological reading doesn't always work well in picking up the patterns of use. Also, large data often comes in formats that require comparison between elements of the large data. So imagine your large data comes from surveys from 2,000 people. Although you can read each text individually, comparing between the texts might be a challenge. So that's a kind of data that approaches that I use allow to deal with. Also imagine that you have the data coming from a survey from the 2,000 people, and you find out that a particular phrase, let's say a term Brexit, has been used really frequently in your data. I would want to find out if this is skewed by a portion of my respondents, or perhaps by one respondent who keeps talking about Brexit, so his views are not representative of the views of the community, but of that individual or small group of individuals. So this kind of analysis would take a lot of time if you were to do it by hand, so to speak, with close reading as an approach, and they take relatively short amount of time when you use computers to help you do it. Corpus Linguistics allows you to pick up significant patterns in language use. Significant means statistically significant or frequent enough, and pattern can be a word, can be a phrase, it can be a grammatical construction. So Corpus Linguistics would pick up the significant bits in language that allow you to conclude that these words or phrases are the themes or topics that authors of the text care about most. Corpus Linguistics can read, therefore, large texts very quickly, can identify the keywords in the text or key phrases, and can aid close reading by focusing on reading context of those keywords and key phrases. So Corpus Linguistics doesn't replace close reading, but it very much helps close reading because it's directed by significance of use of words or phrases or individual constructions. So, for example, if you would like to find out the meaning of woman or how woman is conceptualized in your data, you could look at adjectives that precede the noun woman to see how women are evaluated or described in your data. If you want to see whether women have agency in making various decisions or taking actions, you would look at women in a subject position in the sentence. If you want to find out what is being done to women, so to speak, of with women, you might want to look at women in object position in a sentence. So that's what I refer to as a kind of construction led searches and also word-led searches. This is Corpus Linguistics allows you to continue this iterative process between distant and close reading until you achieve your results, until you answer your research questions. What are the limitations of corpus linguistic approaches? One limitation is data that is too small. If you'd like to make conclusions about patterns of language use and significant patterns of language use, your patterns should be frequent enough mathematically for you to be able to make those conclusions. Also, another limitation to this approach is that you have to learn how to infer the meaning from words. Okay, let me rephrase that. So in corpus linguistics, the data that is presented to you or the data that you can key in is the actual words. But if you want to search for a meaning of love, for example, in your text, you can't search for the meaning because the data is not semantically annotated for its meaning. So therefore, there are certain techniques of how to get to meaning by searching words. And I'll provide some reading at the end of the at the end of this slide. Also, this approach is not very good if you are interested in the narrative and narrative structure and how it evolves as, let's say, your participants tell the story. For that, you'll need a kind of close reading of paragraphs and the storyline. However, it can help you with picking up significant patterns, like I mentioned before. The researchers who use corpus linguistics often want to find key themes and key messages in the text that could be defended as empirical results. So I would like you to think about where in the text a key meaning would live. Would you see the key theme or key meaning sitting in a word or phrases or constructions? What is a theme? How many themes you think would be in the text that you are usually dealing with? How would you train a research assistant on your project whose task is to identify key themes and key meanings in the text? How specific or detailed and how general those themes are? Think about your texts and the instructions in a way you would give to the research assistants on what they should do and how they should identify the meaning in the text. As promised earlier in my presentation, I provided some suggested reading if you'd like to get familiar with corpus linguistics. The first reading is a case study, very informative methodologically as well, a case study on applying corpus linguistics to look at discourses of refugees here and asylum seekers in UK press. The second reading is a book that I often use with my undergraduate students on how to extract meaning using corpus linguistic methods. It's very well written and I recommend it. The third reading is using more recent corpus linguistic approaches to identifying meaning in key concepts in data. And here myself with my co-authors, we looked at data from Mass Observation Archive, COVID diaries to pick up significant theme and analyze it. I also would like to encourage you to look at our website of Concept Analytics Lab, look at blogs and some briefing papers that illustrate the method I talked about. And that's all for today. Thank you for listening to this presentation. Hope I inspired your interest in corpus linguistics and new methods that are based on computer kind of assisted reading of texts. Thank you very much.